Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2015 Global Dialogue on Waste. We are proud to be conducting our panel discussions consecutively for the third year to disseminate knowledge in waste management. As part of the 2015 Global Dialogue on Waste, we will host a panel discussion every Wednesday this year until the end of December 16th. Our next panel will be on November 25th, which is next Wednesday, and we'll have experts from India talking about the Clean India campaign or the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. You can learn more about the time and other details of all upcoming panels by following us on social media or by subscribing to our newsletter. We welcome you to join this conversation with your questions and comments. You can use the live chat window on our homepage or tweet to us at BWasteWise. If you're watching this video after its live broadcast, you can find recordings of all our panel discussions on our website, www.wastewise.be. So thank you very much for joining us today. And we have Lucien Yoppa and Mike Webster joining us today for the Microenterprises in Waste Management. And we'll start with introductions. And Lucien, could you please introduce yourself and your organization? Tell us a little bit about your work.
Okay, thank you, Randy. It is a pleasure for me to be part of this panel in terms of to discuss about waste management, mainly the engagement of micro enterprises within this sector. So I'm working with FCTV, which is a local NGO here in Cameroon, dealing in the sustainable development, targeting several sectors, aiming to improve the living condition of community at the grassroots level. And we also work with the government in order to make some partnership between them to succeed in the reduction of the poverty community. So my name is Lucien, as Randy said. I'm an engineer from the background with 2 years experience in renewable energy at my early stage of career. So then I'm focusing my career direction on the waste to wealth technology and approach in order to provide the communities with a better way forward how to tackle waste in general. Yeah.
Right, great. Thank you very much, Lucien. And I mean, it's just wonderful to see people of our age in the sector working, and it's the sector itself is changing rapidly. People coming from different backgrounds, so it's wonderful to have you join BWasteWise and the community. So thank you for joining us today. Mike, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization and what you're doing?
My name is excuse me. My name is Mike Webster, and I'm the chair of a brand new organisation called WasteAid UK. We were just formed in February this year with an aim to essentially deliver collections to the 3 billion people who live in this world without formalised waste management services. And we have since then been delivering our first project, which is a waste innovation centre, we grandly call. Essentially, it's a site where entrepreneurs can come and try out new approaches to managing reprocessing waste. And we've got that going. I just said today we've got another community in there, literally as we speak, working on a new approach to reprocessing a wide variety of readily available wastes.
Great, thank you, Mike. And I think all of us in the sector were extremely happy to have an organization like WasteAid. And the first project you got was like a proof of concept. So, wonderful. We would love to hear more about that during this panel. But I think it'll also be good to hear about your work with Microenterprises. So we'll get to that in the discussion. But so Lucien and Mike, do you work together on the same project?
No. Lucien, you've been working with Living Earth. We have been contacted.
Okay. So Living Earth is another organization which is kind of okay. All right. Great. So Mike, can you talk a little bit about the trends that you see in microenterprises? What gaps in the system are they filling, or what kinds of business models and technologies are they using?
Well, trends are led by two things. It's what is there within the waste, and secondly, what is the demand for materials. And there are two particular areas where that there are movements around those. So first of all, waste electronics and electrical equipment, or e-waste, also known as, is one of the few kind of real growth areas of waste at the moment. So we're seeing, certainly in West Africa, there's a large reuse repair economy based on the recovery and repair, reuse, and recovery for recycling of weed. Something else that we've seen a growth of, and I think an increased interest in, is the requirement for alternative fuels, and a lot of waste entrepreneurs are stepping in to that market. So we're seeing particular growth and movement around torrefaction, i.e. charcoaling, and briquetting of a variety of different materials, and that's certainly something that a lot of the third sector, the NGO sector, have got interested in.
Great, thank you, Mike. And Lucien, what do you think? What are the trends that you see?
Yeah, here in Cameroon, we also seen such kind of waste management with microenterprises. Things we are focusing on microenterprises. In terms of microenterprises, we have some e-waste, also, as Mike said. Here in Cameroon is an emerging kind of waste. So here in Cameroon, we are not really thinking about how we are going to do with this kind of waste. But by now, we are really focused on the household waste, how we are going to deal it. We have some microenterprises in the field. We are making some technology, using some technology from abroad, such as briquettes, using household waste material to turn it into briquettes as an alternative source of fossil fuels. And we also have another alternative products, such as fireless cooker, turning polystyrene bar into a fireless cooker. We also have here in Cameroon some microenterprises who are using plastic waste in order to turn it into paving block for building the way and to lay the way forward. Yeah.
Okay, great. Mike, could you? I know your previous project was you were working on alternative fuels from waste. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, I mean, one of the key, ask anyone who works within reprocessing waste, as soon as you collect the material and are looking to add value to it, it stops being a waste and it starts being a resource. And it can only be a resource if there is a demand for the end markets. Now there is a growing demand for, and continuing across various parts of the world in different types of ways, for cooking fuels. There is a growing demand for absolute amounts because there are increasing populations and increasing urban populations. There's growing awareness around the impact of cooking fuels, particularly from a pollution point of view, so people are more aware of the impact of smoke and so forth. And this is also having an impact on local environment, so deforestation because of either for fuel wood, either directly or for charcoaling, is an issue across, for instance, sub-Saharan Africa. So looking at it that way around, there is an opportunity to use innovative approaches to be using materials that were considered waste as typically charcoal briquettes or fuel briquettes. So it is understanding that there is that gap in the market, that with a few simple technologies, material that was considered as waste and was causing local public health and environmental harm can now, there is now a demand for it. And that is, why there is that growth. It is that growth because there is the demand there. You can't just magic growth and demand out of thin air. It's because people are looking for new approaches to cooking food, and generally it's fuel for food cooking.
Right. So cooking fuel is a requirement in sub-Saharan Africa, the places that you're working in, and I think that's kind of fueling the demand for waste to be converted there, right?
Absolutely, it's end markets first. If there is a demand from the end market for a material, and then you can start looking at how it could be reprocessed. As I said, you can't, with any, whether it's micro or macro enterprises, you can't magic the demand out of thin air, and particularly with micro enterprises, if there is local demand, which is key. For some marginal products, particularly organic materials, that's very important. Micro enterprises that deal with waste and recycling can fit into some global markets. The classic one being scrap metal, but particularly with certain materials around, particularly organics, they're local.
Mm-hmm. And Lucien, so can you talk about the projects that you're working on currently and what kind of technologies they're using?
Yeah, we work on the West to World project, with the project that was aiming to improve the living condition of student in slum areas here in the Douala, Cameroon. So we did support some MEC, which from the past we're not aware about what they can do with waste. What kind of income can be generated through a waste or any kind of waste management. So by now, we support them by providing them with some technique in order to turn waste, to reuse them, and to recycle them on something that can sell out to get income.
Mm-hmm.
So such an example.
Excuse me. So
Yeah.
your aim was to improve livelihoods, and you chose waste management as a way to do that.
To do that, yes. In order to, because here in Cameroon, we are also focusing on the Millennium Goal Development. Our project focused on the Millennium Development 1 in order to reduce poverty, and the Millennium Development Goal 7 to improve living conditions. So since waste are becoming a real problem here in Cameroon, this project has come to support or to give in some approach, such as the multi-stakeholder approach, because this project will not also only focus on MEC or micro entrepreneurs. We also focus on how we are going to engage 3 other stakeholders, such as civil society and local authority, how they can work together to better manage the waste, particularly household.
Okay, so your focus was household wastes, and what was the gap that you were closing? For example, is it in the collection, or is it more in the conversion side of it? Lucien?
I mean, if I don't know if Lucien's connection is gone down, but I'm happy to.
We also.
So the key. I'd suggest the key driver. Oh, sorry, Lucien.
Sorry, Lucien, we lost you for a bit. I was asking which gaps do the projects that you work on, try to address? Is it the collection in waste management, or is it the conversion side of it?
First of all, it was about how to engage the community on waste management. Okay. Because there is a problem. There is a problem here. And the only stakeholder in charge is the local authority. But since the approach which is being implemented by the local authority is not really appropriate.
Okay, I think we have a patchy connection with Lucien.
I'm happy just to kind of reflect on the points that you were talking about with Lucien. The fundamental situation is that in many poorest cities and even villages and provincial towns, municipal waste, household waste is simply not collected. There are simply not the municipal services there. So the challenge is to see how we can incentivize communities, individuals, for everyone to become waste collectors. So the way that that can be done is by incentivizing people to collect waste, and the way you do that is add value. So a few simple technologies, microenterprises, can turn that organic waste into a livelihood. And you know, our direct experience from what we've just been doing in West Africa, we were very much focused on adding as much value as possible. We did solid research to understand the waste streams, to understand what was there, understand what would motivate people to collect and engage with waste management, improve waste management in their communities, whether that's urban, rural, peri-urban. And the way that we found that was most effectively done, and it was already, there were already some extremely effective recycling systems, was by engaging with people to incentivize them to collect material to add value. So for instance, we found through our waste composition studies that there was very little metal, very little metal in the residual waste. Why? Because there was a clearly defined and understood system of collecting metals for payment, and that went all the way back to the householder. So why not do the same for organics? Why not do the same for plastic? These are marginal materials. That's why they're in the rubbish. You know, people aren't going to throw away things that are instantly valuable. But what we were doing is showing the value within these materials by applying some locally applicable materials. So we went for the organics and the plastic as well, and using, you know, you ask about where you focus on the collection or the reprocessing. Well, actually, if you focus on the reprocessing, if you all of a sudden can develop a business case from collecting a certain waste stream, you will find that, you know, the collection sorts itself out. If you can start saying to someone, "I will pay you X amount for a, you know, however you measure, you know, it's a simple way of measuring your material, a rice sack, for instance, of organic waste," and then you will find that people start bringing it to you very effectively. You know, so as soon as you can add value to a material, that is why, from a waste management point of view, you know, I was particularly interested in the microenterprise approach.
Yeah.
Sorry, back now, but I should let you.
Right. I was actually, I like what you said towards the end about the value of the material. And I was actually talking to a bunch of secondary school students recently. And I was trying to explain to them why waste is put on the streets, whereas gold or their working bicycle is not put on the streets, is not left on the streets. So I was trying to explain them the concept of value in the material. So I understand if there is value, then it's not on the street. Someone actually takes it and then, you know, reclaims that value. So good. So Lucien, I'm sorry we lost you earlier. Do you want to? Do you have any comments on what Mike said, or respond to the question?
Yeah, in terms of just to mention a bit comment about the main problem facing with microenterprises in terms of waste management. Here in Cameroon, in slum areas, since we have a private company here in Cameroon which is in charge to collect all waste from the field, but they don't have the opportunity to reach the slum areas.
Right.
So that's why with the waste project, we come to mobilize MECs and slum areas in order to take the lead of the collection of waste in this area, then to take up all this waste to the collection point, then this private company can be able to carry them for the landfill to be recycled and to be incinerated, some kind of things. So in my point of view, I think the financial process in order to find some entities to provide to some community, I don't know if this financing approach can be sustained. My point, I think we need to tell to the communities, waste management is a problem for all of us. If we don't do anything to remove all that waste or to better manage all that waste, we could face some additional problems such as flooding and so other climatic related issues.
Yeah.
So that's why I think we try to provide some incentive to the communities in order to let them you know set up the waste to these micro enterprises with like with some money, some income in return to them. But I don't think in terms of sustainability, this if we don't have any kind of finance during a certain period, I think the approach will not be continuous at the end.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Let's get to that question about you know, how micro enterprises survive after the initial support. But before that, the point you mentioned about slum areas, I think it's that's very important, because for urban planners and city managers, waste management in slums or providing other services in slums has been a tough cookie. You know, they've had trouble trying to figure out how to do that. I think by looking at evidence from around the world, micro enterprises kind of do that job very well. At the slum level, because of the, you know, narrow streets and the lack of other infrastructure. So, Mike, any comments on that?
No, I mean, I think you've really it was fascinating, fantastic to hear from Lucien. Really, the opportunity of micro entrepreneurs is to fill the gaps where the either there's not the political will to deliver large scale municipal services, or there's not that infrastructure to deliver services to different parts of different communities. It kind of is waste is an interesting one, because it's, waste is the effluence of affluence. As well as societies get wealthier, they produce more waste, but it's the poorest in societies that are impacted most negatively. Mm-hmm. So you may be dealing with some megacity whose economy is growing, which is a good news story overall, but there will be some communities which are being left behind to a certain extent, and are suffering the downside, which is the public health and environmental impact of poor waste management. So that's where micro-entrepreneurial systems can really fit in. I mean, I think it requires a degree of hands-offness by the municipal authorities. They've got to be happy that lots of little organisations are running around reprocessing, collecting materials, dealing with them in a variety of different ways. They need to be comfortable and confident to do that. But no, I just think it shows how it's not one or the other. It's not having big multinational waste companies or big waste companies dealing with materials and then having lots of little micro entrepreneurs. There's a whole ecology of different organisations that can work very well together in the same city, often almost on a street by street basis.
Mm-hmm. So it totally depends upon the local conditions and what the needs are at that point of view.
And that is why whenever you are looking at there are no quick fix solutions for this. It depends on what is the nature of the local waste stream, what is the local demand for different materials, what are there any cultural issues about how people feel about dealing with waste, and are there any socio-economic aspects as well? It's there's a framework there for people to think about if you're looking to introduce or encourage micro-entrepreneurs with waste in your area. But there's no quick fix solution. You've got to get in there and do your research, otherwise your solution will fall over.
And there I have to actually mention something which is very relevant, which is over the last 6 years I've seen multiple entrepreneurs enter waste management business. When they initially enter, they come with the aim of dealing with the problem, addressing the problem. It could be lack of cleanliness on the streets, or a lot of waste being untreated. But then as they move on, as they pivot through their business models, they kind of move towards the materials or business models for which there is a market towards the end. I think that's a good advice for entrepreneurs or other people who are trying to solve the problem of waste management. Start with the demand, and then start with that, and then move ahead in the industry or in the locality, understand more, and then build on that business. Lucien, agree with that, or has your experience been the same, or is it any different?
Yeah, but from my experience with the Webster project here the demand on terms of waste is not really what we're concerned about. Is mainly the problem that waste is causing to the community. There's not really a demand for an alternative solution, and also with the main problem here is to dealing with waste. How we are going to remove all this waste from the field in order to better have a clean environment to the community.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I said, in our context, the problem is how to use this waste, not the demand. And here, and on the other hand, we have some MSCs in the field, as you said, take the lead to clean up the cities, and at the same time, how they can generate income with them, even if it's not really like a big business. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a bit of both, isn't it, Mike? Both balancing the demand and also addressing the issue, the problem.
Yeah.
If material is in the residual waste stream, there is a suggestion that there's currently no demand for it. That's why it's there. If there was demand for material, it would have been, and someone said, "I'm going to give you money for this," it would be quite, successfully diverted. I generalise, but that's certainly our experience. And so you've got to understand that that there is a degree of alchemy about what you're trying to do. You're trying to turn something that there was no demand for, and creating demand. So the way that you do that is, well, first of all, understanding what it is. Secondly, understanding what sort of things there are. What are their end markets for? We talk about fuel. I mean, that's a classic one. If you can provide a good new product which is cheaper and more effective than what is already out there, the demand is there. So that is about your products. But so you've got to understand that there's it's never going to make anyone a millionaire, but the application of a few simple and appropriate technologies and working in an appropriate way with local organisations that are keen to develop and continue this, is a good approach. And as I said, I mean, the reason that I'm interested in it from a waste point of view is because the traditional models have in many cases failed, and people are simply not having material collected. So this is a new framework, a different approach to trying to get this pesky waste off the street.
Right. Here, I actually want to ask you briquettes that you produced, and what the reaction was to what the market reaction was to the briquettes that you produced recently. But before that, I'd also like to mention about I'd also like to talk about what you just said. I'm sorry, I'm blanking out here. But maybe do you want to just start with the market reaction to the briquettes, and then I'll come back to this point later.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, just we were keen to find an easy market that we thought there would be. We were trying to. What we'd done is we'd understood what the waste was there. We talked to people and looked at what potential end markets were there. We looked at what tried and trusted technologies are there. When we really didn't want to reinvent the wheel, or we were keen to, having taken a waste-first approach. So we focused on carbon-rich organic waste, a whole variety of different readily available materials, everything that came out of our composition analysis, everything from coconut husks to mango leaves to branches, anything that was readily available in yards and on street corners and so forth, and that was causing a problem by blocking up drains, and a pollution problem by being burnt on clean-up days and so forth. And so focused on a variety of organic rich materials, and used a simple technology that had been used in Haiti by Massachusetts Institute of Technology, their D-Lab, a simple briquetting technology, and we looked to develop briquettes that were, again, easily acceptable by local markets, and working with our community partners, we actually engaged charcoal sellers to be, as some of our waste entrepreneurs. We we said, okay, we'll give you training if you give us all your market knowledge on selling charcoal, and very practical stuff. These were women who are practiced charcoal sellers in local markets, and they were very interesting, saying you can make small ones. There's a whole range of demand, and we ended up focusing on ones that could simply be used in normal stoves. There are a variety of ones that are looking to be used with improved stoves, and we think improved stoves are of course great, but we wanted ones that could be simply used in acceptable stoves. We developed a business model that meant they could be sold, they could undercut charcoal made from lumpwood charcoal made from fire, from forests, and we had a program where we essentially gave people free ones for a few days, and then introduced the price, and the acceptability was excellent. And we were having them, having our charcoal entrepreneurs sell out. So by the end of the project, they were coming to the site, our innovation centre, to make more product, essentially to sell, because there was a better profit margin for them than there was on the material from the forest. So that was one. We used also experimented with lots and lots of materials, and this is what I'd say to anyone: experiment with a wide range of materials. Spend as much time as you can developing your products. But it was used a locally available cassava binder to hold it all together. We used we also there was a lot of wood waste around, so sawdust briquettes as well, and they actually burned hotter and longer, but they were harder on the market acceptability, we think, simply because they look a bit funny. They don't look like black briquettes, don't look like charcoal. They look, like this wood, brown wood, and it's hotter, it's longer, it's smokeless. We could sell them for a bit cheaper, but it's interesting. People are quite conservative in their fuels, because often it's women who are buying these things. They are, as well as not wanting to waste money on an unknown product, they don't want to waste time.
Yeah.
So you've got to be very careful. And as soon as you start doing that, no one really cares that they're made out of waste. Anyone just wants a good product. I'd say to anyone, it's all about quality control. All of a sudden, you're dealing with very, very particular consumers, and you've got to be very careful about your quality.
And what's happening with the project now? Is it still going on? Are people actually making the briquettes right now with waste?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have local entrepreneurs, and they have people who do other bits and pieces as well. But for instance, the charcoal sellers are coming in. Waste is being brought into the innovation centre, and on a weekly basis, they are briquetting. We reckon about half a ton of waste a week. So for our pilot project, we're pretty happy with that. We have our local partners have been engaged by around half a dozen other NGOs in Senegal, Gambia as well, to essentially spread the word. So the charcoal, it's gone absolutely crazy. People are coming to us from all over.
So you've cleaned up the area.
Yeah, it's fascinating. There's still plenty of organic waste to go around, but it's not only using a material, but it's also fulfilling a need, because the prices of charcoal were going up. People were spending more and more on it. The environmental impact was huge. So it doesn't only hit that waste need, but it also hits the need for cheap, reliable sources of fuel. And if you can make it out of locally available waste, there's always going to be waste.
Right. Always, yeah. And Lucien, so are the enterprises that you work with, are they sustainable? Do they sustain themselves? And what kind of business models do you use there, or how has been the market reaction to those products or services?
Yeah, I'm joyed to hear from Mike with the biomass fuel briquette, because here in Cameroon, we support MECs managed by young people to produce briquettes from waste materials, banana peels, and so on. So here in Cameroon, we support not only these MECs, but we also engage other entrepreneurs in different areas in Douala, as a retailer of these MSCs. Because when we support these MSCs at the local, they are not able to reach all the markets at the same time. They're still producing briquettes, and the market is the products it conveyed to these entrepreneurs in different areas for the commercial purpose. And this business model or this value chain we create to make sustain this market on briquette management. So here in the market we are positively because we did some survey on the field, uh, talking with some beneficiaries, with some customers in order to get the input how they feel with this briquette technology or products. They say is really good. Since they didn't produce much, they also cost effectively in terms of energy efficiency. They burn well. In terms of efficiency, there is a double less than the conventional one or the charcoal with made with fire or with wood
Mm.
also. So here in Cameroon, the market is just starting because we support this MSC by 2000 in March 2014. So they're starting to produce in and to sell it on the market through this, through this network of micro entrepreneurs in different areas.
Mm-hmm.
So
So,
charcoal is just
so I'm sorry. So in Africa, then there is a lot of demand for briquetting technology or briquettes from waste. And talking about barriers, Mike, what do you think are the barriers? Is it just a lack of that awareness about these existing technologies, or is it the lack of those examples which others, would like to?
I mean, it's. I mean, from speaking as a waste manager, there's been. I mean, you can talk about briquettes. There's a whole range of different materials that can be reprocessed, but it's that understanding of a few of those basic principles, being confident that you have easy access and low-cost access to those waste materials in a consistent way. We all know there's lots of waste, but it's understanding exactly what is there and exactly what the availability to that is. Understanding the existence of end markets, are your briquettes or what have you, are they readily acceptable, and ensuring that you have a simple and appropriate technology. I mean, particularly with briquettes, there's a real temptation. You can always buy a bigger machine that will process more per hour. There's always a better grinding machine or a better, and temptation, particularly for an NGO, is to or whilst you've got project funding, is to buy something that's a bit too big, a bit too hard to maintain. And I would really urge people to start small, and then as soon as something is proven, then let them have the problem of not being able to keep up with demand. I mean, that's a good problem to have, and then you can start. These things are eminently scalable, and you can make them as big or small as you want. And often it's people I think do too quick a leap, go for bigger. You always want more throughput. You always want to be dealing with more waste. You want to be producing more jobs for more people all the time. That's a laudable aim, but don't go too quickly, too big.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that's really, I think I'd like to just add about the whole the entrepreneurial approach is that it's a way of getting people talking about waste. Everyone knows it's a problem, but no one really has an idea of what to do with it. And as soon as you start saying to people, okay, if we segregate our waste, because segregation is a key step to adding value, then we can start thinking about, okay, we've got these different bits of things and we can do different things, whether it's particularly organics. I mean, what the way that you deal with putrescible waste? Well, it's fertilizer or manure. That's kind of the best way of dealing with that. Separating that from the carbon-rich waste, which can be easily briquetted, separating that from plastics, which really, separating organic, these sorts of things. As soon as you do that, some of the solutions become apparent. But getting that kind of micro-entrepreneurial attitude gets people thinking about solid waste in a new way, rather than just they're going, well, the municipality hasn't collected it again. I'm going to have to burn it in my yard or throw it in the drain. just trying to get people to think about things in a new way.
Interesting. Lucien, what do you see as the barriers to micro enterprises in Africa?
I think each context is different. When we talk about tackle with and with the micro enterprises as a key actor involved in them, we need to first of all, as Mike said, we need to bend some study in order to know which kind of technology can be used to tackle or to from waste. The main barrier here is the technology here in Africa. I think we have some waste, we have some approach, some technology that can be useful coming from Europe and from other areas and in the world. So here in Africa, I think we need to think about what is appropriate for us to tackle with. And also we need to change the mentality or to behavior of our communities on how to produce less waste, how to start to dealing with it at the household level. Because here in Cameroon, waste management is not really, as I think is the same thing in the other country in Africa. It's not really a concern with the local communities. They're often used to mix all the waste in the same package and put it in the same point. So this is at the grassroots level, we need to start first how at the community level, how to engage them to first of all separate all this waste as it is done on the other areas. But here in Africa is one of the key problems, one of the first steps in order to appropriately manage waste. But I think we also need to, I don't know if the point, also need to deal with the industrial waste, because here in Africa is also another kind of waste that is really relevant here, and we also need to know how we are going to dealing with them. I'm talking about medical waste. I'm also talking about liquid waste from industry. We also need to know how to manage them, because even on industry that produce this kind of waste, they are not able to tackle this waste most of the time.
Of course.
So this is another problem here in Cameroon. There is many consequences in health and safety and so on. So we need to first of all start to study our context, each context in Africa, because different countries in Africa has its own context. So we need to know what can be relevant for each country and to another here in Africa. And then I think we are going to succeed. We select the better approach to tackle different kind of waste.
Okay. I'll consider that as your concluding remarks, because you spoke about the barriers and also what needs to be done next. So, Mike, we started 2 minutes late, so we have another 3 minutes. Do you have any final remarks about this discussion, or what you would like to suggest to micro enterprises?
No, I mean, I just like to back up what Lucien said, really, that it's a fantastic way of introducing the subject to people, so it can be seen as, you know, part of a wider package. If you're dealing with a community, a village, what have you, saying, okay, how can we A, plan and work together to minimize the harm that solid waste causes you, but B, look at how can we maximize the potential economic benefit. I think it's a whole new approach, so that is why it is of interest. I think it was also part of a wider package of, generally thinking about waste slightly more. I think it's always been a bit of a, there's increasing evidence where people can really understand how much of a brake on development lack of waste collection and poor waste management is, from child development, all of these sorts of things. And so hopefully we're going to see more action around it, but this is a great first way of introducing it to people, saying this is not just a problem, this is actually a potential livelihood for people. So, yeah.
Great. Wonderful then. So, Lucien, any final remarks? We have another minute to go.
I think not yet.
Okay, all right, great. Wonderful then. Sure. Thank you again to the two of you for joining us today and for your time. And Mike, thank you for your time and actually suggesting panelists and working through the dates for a while to finally get this date. So thank you very much.